Welcome to opening day Eve. It's like a holiday. 48 hours away from the New York Yankees and the Houston Astros, one of the best rivalries in baseball to open up the season. We'll probably have to wait another 24 hours for the Mets because the rain looks horrible on Thursday. We'll get to the baseball today. More fallout from Shohei Ohtani. The latest on DJ LeMahieu, which is not very good. Coming up at 3:30, another edition of Posted and Toasted. But today is a day of finality. Today is a day where we as New Yorkers can finally put to bed one of the great sports debates that we have had on and off for 6 years. How often do we have a sports debate that goes and it has its ebbs and it has its flows for 6 years before finally there is finality? This is a debate you've had at the water cooler at work. This is a debate you've had calling up this radio station. This is a debate you've had with your husband or wife. And, of course, I'm referring to the debate between the decision, the great F-up of 2018. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, let's bring you back to 6 years ago when both the New York Jets and the New York Giants made a decision that they would regret forever.
With the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
Wow. Listen to that reaction. It's like The Rock showed up randomly on Monday Night Raw. And then the New York Jets made their great F-up of 2018.
With the third pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC.
Our two franchises, the New York Jets, the New York Giants, linked forever because of a decision. A decision the Giants made to draft Saquon, a decision the Jets made to draft Sam Darnold. And the one thing we could all agree on, I think, 6 years later, with Saquon Barkley officially gone, with Sam Darnold now having been gone for 3 years, we all screwed up. But who screwed up more? And I'm here to tell you, as I wear my Jet bandana on this beautiful Tuesday, you guys screwed up more than we did.
It was the Arizona Cardinals. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
They did too.
Josh Rosen didn't last for a year. I mean, it'd be easy for me to just, it's the Jets because Saquon had such a much better career. But it is the Jets that screwed up more. It's hard because I'm like, am I thinking the Giants or am I thinking the Jets here? But I'm saying the Jets screwed up more here because Sam Darnold never rose to the level of a third overall pick. And then in the very next opportunity to draft a quarterback, you use basically the same pick, except for one higher, to take another quarterback. So when you draft a quarterback and then 4 years later you're drafting at the exact same position, how could you not say that that's a bigger screw up? And forget the fact that he never materialized into the player that we thought he was going to be in New York. At least Saquon Barkley was a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro and Rookie of the Year and had a couple of seasons that were spectacular and lived up to the billing. You know what I mean? So I know you can incorporate so many other things, the missed time and et cetera for Saquon, and you match that with Sam Darnold. Maybe it comes out a little bit on top for Sam, but for me, Sam never lived up to what a second or third overall pick should have been. And to me, that's the most damning thing.
What's the goal of sports? It's to win, right?
It's to build a team and to win.
And to win. Okay, that's why we're all here. We're all here as fans because we hope our team wins. The Yankees are going to open a season in a few days. You hope they win. The Mets are going to open a season in a few days. I hope they win. We're all here to win, win, win. That's the name of the game. I'm about to blow your mind with a stat. Mm-hmm. Saquon Barkley ended up playing for the New York Giants for 6 seasons. He ended up playing in 73 games over those 6 seasons. In those 6 years, when Saquon Barkley was on the football field, the New York Giants had a record of 25-48. That is a winning percentage of .342.
Not all his fault.
Of course not all his fault. No doubt. I am not pinning that on Saquon Barkley. I'm just giving you facts. I'm just going to give you some facts, and we can digest it. A winning percentage of .342. You remember what I just said? What was his winning percentage?
.342, but running backs don't get the winning percentage.
I understand.
They get the statistics.
I'm just saying the Giants selected him 2 overall. He was on the team for 6 years, and when he played, those were the results. Of course, it's not all his fault. Sam Darnold played in 38 games for the New York Jets over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
His record was 13-25. You know what his winning percentage was?
No.
The exact same thing. I'm not kidding. I didn't make that up. 342. Both Sam Darnold and Saquon Barkley. I know. You think I knew that? You think I planned it? No, I was out of curiosity looking it up. Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. It's just a side note to have. It's a side note that when you make a decision in the top 5 or the top 10 or the top 15, the Giants are about to make one, a significant decision at 6. The Jets are about to make a significant decision. You want that to impact wins and losses. Now, obviously, the Jets and Giants are in far different positions this year than they were 6 years ago. 6 years ago, they were both worse off, in my opinion, but they were also in different positions in where they thought they were. The Giants delusionally thought they still had a quarterback when they should have known, thank you, Eli, it's time to move on. The impact on winning that Sam Darnold and Saquon Barkley both had for their teams was exactly the same. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, the Jets knew and identified we have to find a quarterback. Were they wrong? Of course they were wrong. A lot of that is on Sam. A lot of that's on the coaching staff. A lot of that is on the Jets. They don't know how to nurture and build a young quarterback. But what they did is they swang for the fences. They said, we know what we need. Let's identify it, and let's try. And it failed, but they tried. The Giants, on the other hand, while they drafted a good football player and a football player that sold a lot of jerseys and a football player that hurt you by going to Philadelphia to the point where to most Giant fans, including you yourself, he's now dead to you, they made a wrong fundamental decision. They went and thought about their team in such a wrong way that they didn't swing for the fences by drafting a young quarterback. And that's why, to me, their decision, even though they got the better player, was far worse.
I hear what you're saying. Now, the one thing that I think will sit in your craw if you're a Giants fan is that you easily could have replaced Eli Manning, let him sit for a year or two with Josh Allen. And that just kind of, you never live that one down because what Josh Allen has become.
Yep.
But you can't go relive the history. And the reality is that in real time, I didn't disagree with this pick. I know it felt ridiculously high for a running back, and I think the next running back that was taken even close was Bijan, right? Or was it Bijan or Gibbs in this past year's draft?
There hasn't a running back as high as that.
As that high, it hasn't been a lot of high running backs since then. But it doesn't even matter. My point is, at the time, I thought this was a smart draft move because you looked at the Giants' offense and you looked at their team and you said if they had a playmaker, if they had a difference maker, someone who could hit his head on a goalpost on any single play, maybe Eli salvages another couple of seasons because he's a vet. He knows how to play above the X's and O's. He can make still some of those throws. This is a good draft pick. And so in real time, it felt good. I think with Sam Darnold, in real time, there was a lot of question marks. Like nobody knew what Sam Darnold was. It thought he was going to be a star. He only played a couple of years in college. So to me, it didn't match what they were actually looking for. I mean, honestly, let's be fair. The Jets should be the ones lamenting not taking Josh Allen as opposed to the Giants because the Jets still hadn't found a quarterback until they went and got Aaron Rodgers a year ago.
Oh, yeah, but at least they had the thought right. The thought was we need to find a quarterback. It's the most important position in the NFL. The Giants had the thought completely wrong. And I remember sitting here when we all debated this, and this is why this is such a fascinating debate that we can finally put closure on. Because back in 2018, in the lead up to the draft, we thought this debate would last for 10 and 15 years, and it would be like a Don Mattingly versus Keith Hernandez debate, a Duke Snyder versus Willie Mays versus Mickey Mantle debate. You know,
not exactly.
One of those fun debates where everybody did well.
Yeah.
But we're just debating who did better. Instead, this is like a contest in which we're arguing who's less small than the other. So it is amazing how this whole thing turned out. But as we were leading up to that draft, the debate was the Giants need to realize they need to find their quarterback. And drafting a running back at 2 overall puts themselves in a position where two things have to happen for this to work. And I said this at the time, so I'll say it 6 years later. And spoiler alert, none of those two things happened. One option, win a championship. One option is you just drafted a great running back. You've got Eli Manning. One last run, win. And if it's not a championship, you go on a deep postseason run. You want to accept that as being a winning formula? Fine. That did not happen because they didn't even make the postseason until the quarterback that you were doubling down on was gone. The second option was he turns into a Hall of Famer. The second option is we're talking about Saquon Barkley like he's Barry Sanders, like he's Jim Brown, like he's an all-time great. Maybe even if he's like you, who's, no offense, not Jim Brown or Barry Sanders, but certainly a guy who could be in the Hall of Fame at some point. Saquon's neither. He's not you, and he's certainly not Jim Brown or Barry Sanders. Those were the only two ways, to me, the thought of taking a running back at number 2 could ever work. And neither was close. He is not close to being you. He's not close to being a Hall of Famer. He's now gone. And the Giants never came close to saying, hey, let's reload with Eli. So the thought behind the pick, even though, yes, he was a fine NFL player, was a colossal failure.
Right. And so what was Sam Darnold then? If that's what we're talking about, Saquon, and he had a somewhat successful few years here with the New York Giants. I'd say 3 out of the 6 were pretty good years. 2 of them were fantastic. What is Sam Darnold then? He never made a Pro Bowl. He never was thought of as one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 quarterbacks in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when I think about the Saquon draft, the same thing that we talked about up until this season because of the offensive line, it's the same thing that was the issue there. Think about it. It was Evan Brown and Will Hernandez, who they drafted also that year as a rookie. Nate Solder, Chad Wheeler. This is the offensive line that we're talking about. I know Odell was still there, but who the hell was blocking for Saquon?
This is really difficult because it's like picking what's more handsome in Evan not shaven or Evan with the beard. They're both ugly. But the bottom line is this, Evan, you just laid this out with Saquon. If Saquon became that Hall of Fame Barry Sanders running back, there was still a good possibility. It was still a mistake by the Giants.
Because they weren't ready to win.
The Giants, by taking the running back second overall, and this is why I think it's more of a mistake than I agree with you. The Jets swinging, go for the quarterback.
Look at you, showing on Team Jets for a day. How about that?
It failed miserably, but at least they swung. The Giants sitting back at number 2 overall. When you're picking second overall, you can't afford your mortgage. Don't go draft a Ferrari now because you can't even pay your house. Stupid analogy, trying to make it work.
No, but it makes sense.
That was what the Giants did there. What they needed to do was not just sit there and go, we'll take Darnold and make that mistake. If you don't love a quarterback, and there's lessons to be learned for the Giants in this draft, you have to entertain the idea of a trade. You can't sit there because had they traded back to 6 or 7, maybe Saquon tumbles and they still get him and they get an extra first-round pick out of it. Or, dare I say, as we keep worrying about the O-line and you're listing off guys like Chad Wheeler and Nate Solder, you take Quentin Nelson at 5th overall or something like that.
Absolutely.
Or, oh my God, you actually scout and you're the team that takes Josh Allen a couple picks down the line. You cannot, when you are that bad a franchise, take a running back second overall. And for that reason, at least you got to give the Jets credit. And by the way, I give the Jets even more credit because they got back on their horse 2-3 years later.
That's it.
Swung again at Zach Wilson. They keep throwing those darts. Sure, they fail. Sure, they're the butt of everybody's jokes. But at least they understand the name of the game. And the name of the game is you can't win without a franchise quarterback.
I'll tell you a quick story, Sean, about what you were talking about. So in 1997, that was the year that I got drafted out of the University of Virginia. In 1997, there was a thought that Jim Fossil was going to take me in the first round. And Jim Skipper, who was my running back coach, convinced him, you know what, Jim? Tiki's going to be there later. You need the wide receiver and the running back. Take Ike, and Tiki will be there later.
Bam.
Guess what? I was there later. And in this particular draft, 2018, that we're talking about, the next running back that was taken, the 24 teams in between the Giants and the Seattle Seahawks, none of them took a running back until the Seahawks took Rashad Penny with the 26th pick, or 27th pick, I should say, in the first round. And then after that, there was Sony Michel, and in the second round, Nick Chubb went. So what you're saying is right. If the Giants had traded back, say somebody wanted that quarterback, probably the Bills, to be honest with you. The Bills likely would have went forward and gotten Josh Allen. The Giants could have traded back, taking a lineman or taking whoever because running backs weren't going to go that high in the draft.
Think about that draft. The Giants walked out with Saquon and then Will Hernandez to try to fix the O-line. They could have gone reverse with Quentin Nelson and Nick Chubb. What would have resulted in a better Giant team?
I don't think they would have ended up with Saquon Barkley if they traded back because remember, Cleveland had the multiple firsts and had already drafted Baker Mayfield. And I think there was a decent chance they were then going to say, hey, let's give Baker a weapon and draft Saquon Barkley. Look, there are a lot of ways the Giants could have gone on that day. All of them would have been better, more sound options than drafting a running back. And see, here's what's beautiful about this. I've always hated this debate for the last 6 years. You know why I hated it every time it would come up? Because there was no closure to it.
It was incomplete.
There was no end to it. It's like a lot of the modern-day debates of Jordan versus LeBron or Mahomes versus Brady. Like, they're sort of fun to have, but they're going to evolve. It isn't over. It's now over. The fact that Saquon Barkley is no longer a New York Giant, we have complete closure to this. Because if the Giants would have gone on that run 2 years ago, and instead of getting nicked by Philadelphia, went further, and dare I say won a Super Bowl, I think the discussion would have been completely different. Because it would have ended with Saquon Barkley being a key part of a championship team, instead of what ended up happening, which is ultimately he's gone. It worked to a degree. It didn't work enough, but you had the wrong decision-making. The Jets failed on Sam Darnold. I'm not here to tell you that that was such a great pick. It wasn't.
So
Sam failed.
Then how can you say that the Giants were worse?
Because it was worse, because they had the wrong thought.
Okay, but the Jets
had the right thought. Draft the quarterback. They just got it wrong again.
The Giants in subsequent years went to the playoffs. The Giants, they corrected it. Right? And then took some couple of coaches.
Well, you could argue the Jets corrected it. 2 years later, they drafted another quarterback. That failed. And then 2 more years after that, they brought in a Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay,
they corrected it too.
Yeah, but the Giants have been to the playoffs twice since then. And the Jets have not.
Only once.
Twice, right?
No,
it's right. That's one. That's right. It was 1 year before.
Matter of fact, they have combined shared the worst record in the NFL since that draft.
You're correct.
Since that great draft for both of us, we have the worst combined record in the NFL.
And by the way, meanwhile, Sam Darnold's on his 4th team.
Look, Sam was a boss, dude. I'm not arguing it. It's just that when you think back to that day, 6 years ago, 1 month from today, we will hit the 6-year anniversary of a draft that I don't think will ever be as hyped as any other draft in New York sports history.
There was some good players in it, though.
Of course, yeah. Look, there's a lot of ways both teams could have gone where things would have played out differently. But we were sitting there at 2 and 3 after the Jets traded up. And they were in that 3 spot. And the Giants were at 2. And we all sort of knew Baker Mayfield was going number 1 overall. That was an intense month of debate of who do you take, what do you do. And now that we have closure on all of it, it sucked for everybody, obviously. It sucked for all of us.
Didn't suck for Denver.
I mean us.
It didn't suck for Indianapolis.
I'm not talking about them.
It didn't suck for Buffalo Bills. These are all the teams that are right behind them, by the way.
I get it. I'm talking about us.
Didn't suck for Tampa with Vita Vea, who's one of the best D tackles in football. Like, everybody did well in this draft.
Except for us. And I'm just telling you, it sucked more for you than it did me. By the way, we have breaking news about head coach Robert Salah. This is unbelievable breaking news about Robert Salah. I have just been handed a note. It's a first-person account that one of my friend's sons was on a plane from Florida, where Robert Salah was, and his son, a young child, has just barfed all over Robert Salah sneakers. That is breaking news.
What?
That is. I just got this over the wire. My friend's son had a stomach ache. He was on an airplane leaving Orlando, Florida, where Robert Salah was.
What?
And he barfed on Salah's shoes. But I've got great news just to prove to you I am not a hater. Okay, I'm just giving you the news. Robert Salah, quote, couldn't have been cooler.
Now what?
In fact, the now what is get me a towel. His response to the son and to the father, don't worry. It's all good, buddy. I have 7 kids, and I've been puked on plenty.
Oh.
That's an actual quote from a Robert. So, Robert, I know I've been very hard on you, Coach. I may have called you ballsless yesterday, but I got to hand it to you. You are a man's man. It happens, dude. The kid had a stomach ache.
Right.
He let it go. He didn't mean to get it on your shoes. I have great respect for Robert Salah, the human being.
You know what, Evan? This might be a great thing for you and Jet fans. You know what they say when a bird poops on you? That's great luck. Maybe this kid barfing on the shoes is the luck the Jets needed.
That's what I'm going to tell myself now.
Did Coach tell him the best kids parent themselves?
Well, you got to turn this into a shot at Robert Saleh.
It's not. No, you know what?
Why
I
are you
am gonna,
hating on Rob?
I am going to take a shot at the Jets, though, briefly. This story, I'm assuming, is accurate. I don't know why you
I'm putting Robert Saleh over for handling
great job.
this uncomfortable
By the way,
situation in a classy way.
This is not on Coach. Coach did a great job. Here's my issue.
Oh, here we go.
The NFL's owners' meetings are in Orlando, which, if any airport in America, we all know Disney, the whole deal. Can we get Air Woody to fly Robert Saleh back?
Maybe,
I mean, I
maybe
understand.
He stayed. Maybe Woody stayed.
Maybe.
He lives in Florida.
Dude, the bottom line is this.
By the way, that's why he didn't.
All these other
Woody stayed in
cities,
Florida.
man.
Makes sense.
Woody stayed in Florida.
Can you get your coach back up here?
I mean,
He's got to fly with kids coming
No.
back from theme parks.
No, I'll tell you the rules. If I was an owner, here are
stay
the
humble.
rules.
Stay humble. Fly commercial.
It's not even that. My rule is you need to have a season above 500 before you get my private jet. That's my rule. If I owned the team, that's my rule.
I'm surprised Coach didn't drive back like you like to do.
That would have been even badass. I give Coach credit because I have kids. I understand how difficult it is to fly with them. If a random child barfed all over me, I don't look. I wouldn't scream and yell by any stretch, but I don't know if I would have been as cool as Robert Saleh by saying, "Hey, it's all good, buddy. I have 7 kids that get puked on plenty." It's a great job by him.
Yeah.
Would you have handled it that way, T?
Of course, because I have 6 kids. I've been puked on plenty.
The real question is, how would Loogie have handled it with no kids?
Well, I've had random girls barf all over me, so I think I'd be good in that situation.
We'll get to your calls next. It is finally closure on a great New York sports debate we've had for 6 years. Who effed up more, the Jets or Giants, on that fateful night back in 2018 where the Jets took Sam Darnold and the Giants took Saquon Barkley? Your calls, 877-337-6666. Plus, Jim Harbaugh opened up about J.J. McCarthy, and it's unleashing crazy NFL rumors concerning his quarterback. We'll address it coming up. Plus, at 3:30, it's another edition of Posted and Toasted, where we guess the old tweets of some of our fellow WFAN coworkers.